So if I was to say the words, they're coming for our games, you think I've gone crazy, or you think I'm talking absolute hyperbole, or you actually know what I'm going to be talking about in this video. Because there's a group called the National Centre on Sexual Exploitation, and thanks to them, I can say they're coming for our games. Or rather, I should probably say they've come for our games, and thanks to Valve, thanks to Steam, they've pretty much taken our games. Yes, they sent Valve a list of games that they said, we want you to take them off Steam. And Valve, rather than saying no, said, okay, we're going to cave. Yeah, we could go to bat for these games. We could side with our customers. We could side with the gamers and everything else. But no, we're going to cave. We're going to go with you guys. And so they've said, we're going to throw all these games off Steam, and sent a message to all these game publishers, all these game developers, and all these game companies, and said, your games no longer meet our guidelines and we're going to take them off Steam. At which point the game companies turned around and said, you what? What do you mean our games don't meet your guidelines? Our games met your guidelines for months, for years. How can our games suddenly not meet your guidelines now? You know, our games and their content is probably no worse than, say, The Witcher and Grand Theft Auto. In fact, some of our games have got less content than that. So, what do you mean our games don't meet your guidelines? So, yeah, hypocrisy is definitely the word here. They've decided that visual novels are an easy target. They are small and not really in positions to fight back. Except for if they thought that that is a stupid thing to think, because, well, obviously, they haven't exactly met the gaming community, have they? So, not realizing that they're on a slippery slope, and not realizing that this group's never going to be content with just this one small victory, they said, no, we're going to get rid of these visual novels. We don't want the profits from these games anymore, even though a couple of years ago they were kind of singing the praises of visual novels and saying it was the biggest success from Steam Greenlight, because, you know, Steam Greenlight was full of absolute terrible asset flips, full of games where they didn't even have executable files and so couldn't even be called games because they weren't even working games, and yet they were holding up things like Undertale and visual novels as the big heralding successes of Greenlight, saying, well, without Greenlight, we wouldn't even know that visual novels were a thing. We wouldn't have even known that people in the West wanted to play visual novels, and yet they clearly do. There's a big market here. I mean, Mother of Kickstarter, it got over $1 million, and that showed there was a big demand for this stuff. But now it's considered not worth fighting for. It's considered peanuts. But yeah, they've said no, we throw you out and throw you under the bus. So the National Centre on Sexual Exploitation, or Morality in Media, which is easier to say, have jumped up and down and celebrated and said, yes, we've got our big major victory, our first major victory against Steam. And predictably, because everybody knew they weren't going to stop there, except for Valve, obviously, because if Valve had actually thought they weren't going to stop there, they wouldn't have done it in the first place. They've now turned around and said, next up is going to be The Witcher and Grand Theft Auto and Mass Effect and stuff like maybe Dragon Age Inquisition and who knows what else, because we were never going to stop there. And if anybody actually thought that we were, you're going to be kidding yourself. And we're going to have to go after the entire game industry, because of course we were, because we want to get rid of all kind of sexuality from the entire internet, because that's what we've been doing since the 1990s. No, seriously, look it up. They've been trying to get rid of all sexual content from the internet since the 1990s. They've got a list which they're calling the Dirty Dozen, because it's not bad enough what they're doing. They also have to drag a good film name into it as well. And they're just basically targeting all kinds of companies on the internet to try and get them to stop making all kinds of sexual content or anything remotely sexual. They've been going since the 1960s. This is a group that pretty much hates miniskirts and crop tops. That's the kind of group that you're dealing with here. So, if you're thinking they're stopping at adult content and, say, H mangas and stuff like that, no, that's not what they're stopping at. They're going after anything even remotely sexual. So if you think your games are safe, they're not. They're going after everything. In fact, there was a Kickstarter fairly recently. It was called My Sister, and you can read up on this one. I'll actually link it in the description. I found out about it on Facebook and reading the internet and things. And it's basically been pulled by Kickstarter because Kickstarter were absolutely fine with doing adult visual novels and visual novels with sexual content. They were absolutely fine with this company doing their previous campaigns, which had the same kind of content, and absolutely fine with graphic novels that had similar content in them as well. And yet, a few days ago, this company, this publisher, got contacted by Kickstarter and said, we're going to be cancelling your Kickstarter campaign because our integrity team has flagged it and said it is not meeting our guidelines. And they tried to contact Kickstarter. Kickstarter didn't answer them, and they're like, well, can you please tell us what's going on here? And they didn't hear anything. All they knew was it was cancelled. So they set up an Indiegogo to try and get it started again. And after 48 hours, it didn't actually get cancelled, but because they set it up at Indiegogo, they decided to cancel it themselves. And the best they could figure out was that it was probably this group again that's done it, because this group has pretty much said they're going after everything on the internet. So it's likely that Kickstarter has caved to this group, or this group has been getting people to flag these projects to Kickstarter and getting them to review them and then cancel them. Probably under the guise of think of the children, please think of the children, even though you have to be 18 or over to use Kickstarter. And that is one of the things that doesn't make sense with Kickstarter's rules, because again, we're living in the 21st century. We don't live in the 18th century, and therefore, these kind of like backwards moralities, they don't generally apply to everybody. We have the right to choose what we kind of like watch, what content we consume. We are a liberated people. We get to do all of those things. And the mission statement of this group is, we want to impose our Judeo-Christian values on America. I wish I was joking. That's actually their mission statement. Because to them, religious freedom is imposing their religious views and their morality on everybody. And you don't get a choice. That's not religious freedom. There are words for what that is, it's not religious freedom. Yeah. So yeah, this kind of group, this kind of thing, it's the worst. And as such, we actually have to stand up to them. And they're targeting us. They're coming after us. They have actually said directly that they're coming after us. Not only are they coming after our games, but they're coming after everything that's ours. Because, you know, they've got their dirty dozen list. They've not even stopped at their dirty dozen list. They're going after all kind of content on the internet. They're going after everything, even though they haven't realized that the internet isn't just America, it's global. So, yeah, they're imposing their views on everybody, and that is totally wrong. You know, what world do we want to live in? And so you might say these adult visual novels that they're getting rid of, it doesn't affect you. You might say these H mangas that they're stopping getting made, it doesn't affect you. But really, they're not stopping there. So it does affect you. To them, all manga are one and the same. To them, all visual novels are one and the same. And, you know, they will also go after your anime if they can. They will go after all your games. You know, if you like Azure Lane, they will say Azure Lane's got girls in it and all racy content, so we'll have to get rid of Azure Lane. They will say, you know, these anime, because you got hentai anime, and so you've got ecchi anime, and you've got your regular anime. It's all one and the same. You know, they won't separate High School DxD and Sailor Moon as being different anime. They will say it's one and the same. They will group it all together and get rid of it. Up until now, it's been the rating board in the United States that's been protecting us. They differentiate between the different types of anime, the different types of manga, and the different types of games. But because they actually won't ban any of these media, because, well, the Supreme Court said it's all protected under the First Amendment, it's all covered by freedom of speech, this group has said, well, we want this stuff banned, we want it gone, and so because we can't do it under the law, we're now going after the companies directly. That's why they went after Steam. Other companies on their hit list include Amazon. If they went to Amazon and said, we want you to remove your manga and we want you to remove your anime because, well, it's a niche little thing and it's an easy target, well, what's stopping it? Well, what is stopping it is us. If we organise and get together and show that we, the consumer, actually have power, then we can undo all the victories that they've had up until now. And actually, we're in a very good position to do this, especially as we are currently undoing their victory over Valve. Valve has realised they're on the wrong side of things, and they have suddenly realised that listening to this group over the consumer is not good publicity and is not good business practice. Because, well, we are the ones that are keeping their lights on. So there are other platforms that we could use. We can take our money elsewhere and we can go to, say, Good Old Games, and we don't have to use Steam. So we need to keep up the pressure and we need to keep on writing to Valve and say, you need to reverse this decision. You need to keep these games on your platform and issue an apology to these devs and send a clear message to this group that they are not worth listening to. And everybody on the internet, all the internet companies need to know this group is not worth listening to, that we, the customers, are the ones they need to listen to. Unfortunately, it is working because, well, Valve sent out an email to all the companies they have sent out messages to previously and saying, disregard the previous message, we're re-reviewing our review. except for nobody actually knows what re-reviewing the review means because, well, it's a whole load of nonsense. It basically means that they're still in limbo. It could go either way. That's why we still need to keep the pressure onto Valve. And we also need to pressure Kickstarter because Kickstarter, as I said before, are being incredibly insidious. They are targeting projects one by one. Nobody has noticed that Kickstarter is doing this. And the only reason we actually noticed it was because, well, the timing of it was fortuitous, really. They threw out a few projects. One of them happened to be very close to the timing of Valve throwing out all these visual novels, and we're like, oh, wait, so that's why they've actually done this then. Otherwise, we wouldn't have known. We wouldn't have actually noticed. And that's been their plan. We wouldn't have known and we wouldn't have noticed if it wasn't for the fact that Valve have done this at the same time. It's key to note that they've got the same rules as Patreon, and it's also key to note that a few months back, Patreon threw a whole load of people off there because they, like Valve, decided all these people now suddenly didn't meet their rules. They suddenly got very scared. And maybe it's the same thing. Maybe it was this group again. This group wasn't claiming it as a victory, but maybe it's a similar kind of thing. Patreon suddenly ended up getting squeamish. So maybe Kickstarter have been doing it since then, but because they've been doing it one at a time, nobody noticed that it's what Kickstarter's been doing. But now we are noticing. So we need to actually be messaging Kickstarter and saying, look, what are you actually up to? Are you giving in to pressure from groups like this? If so, stop it. We are your customers. You need to give us the content that we want and you need to listen to us. Throw out this outdated morality system. If we just do nothing though, if we just are content to sit on the sidelines, we risk losing nothing. The only reason we are not going to be losing these games from Valve is because people are now standing up and fighting. So we have to continue to fight this. There may be some good to come out of it because Mangagamer and Just have said they are going to be creating their own platforms and those are going to be dedicated for visual novels. And honestly, I think that's a great idea because, well, we can't be trusting Valve for holding visual novels from now on. We can't trust them. They've shown they are untrustworthy. So, honestly, Valve have earned a black mark in my book, and these companies, they need to know they aren't the only players in town. They need to know they need to listen to us, the customers, and if they don't, we will go elsewhere. We need to get onto this.